here, Toby. Get that. Oh, look. Bam Bam. On here. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I thought it would be really fun if we look back at like my birth story and like what I think about it now, as it's almost been 2 years because my son's 19 months, so in about like 5 months he'll be 2. Insane. So let's go and let's go review what I said in my like birth story video, and let's talk about it and how I really felt. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my birth story. So I know there's so many different people who have shared their birth story. It's just started labor was September 10th. So like we go over to my parents' house and have Sunday dinner, and that was so much fun. And so we went that day. We stayed about till I think 8ish. We watched a football game, had dinner, watched more football games, and then we started heading home, and I started feeling a little bit of contractions. And by the time we got home, it was like 8:20. I had some contractions, but like I didn't think they were that strong or that close together. And so got ready, went to bed. I was so tired. And then I wake up maybe an hour. No, I couldn't sleep. That's what it was. I was tired, but I couldn't couldn't get the right position to go to sleep. So I get up and I turn on the bath. But while turning on the bath, I had to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom. Then I got into the bath. That felt good, but I was like starting to have like strong contractions. So I was having strong contractions, and then I got done with the bath, which helped my contractions. It felt good. It eased them. I didn't think I was like that far at that time. Then I got out of the bath. Then I had to go to the restroom again. Sorry, I had to go get my son. So back to my story. TMI if I go past here. So I got out of bed because I had to go to the bathroom again. Went to the bathroom, and at this point I felt like my contractions were getting stronger and they were hurting. And I got up from the toilet. I looked down and I was bleeding. And at that point I called my husband and I'm like, we need to call either my OB or the hospital because I'm bleeding. And I know on the pamphlet that they gave us of like things that are urgent to call them about, bleeding is like one of them. So he called my OB's office, and again, this is at late at night, but they have a night nurse that answers the phone. And so we called him. She's like, okay, you need to call 911 as quick as possible. So as I'm gonna put in some of the clips from my birth story video, but I'll have like my whole postpartum as a first time mom linked. It'll like I think it'll be like a card that'll come up. So like my birth, yeah, I didn't really know I was in labor. Then I took a shower and then my water broke. Then I went to the bathroom and I started bleeding. So we called like the emergency number for my OB, and they're like, well, since she's bleeding, you need to call 911. So, and as we were trying to do that, we were trying to get a hold of my parents. They weren't waking up because I think it was at like 10:30 at that time. And so they weren't waking up. So I called my brother. He was awake. Then my parents finally woke up. And so that's how it went. Then they rushed me in the ambulance once they got there. And when they got there, they're like, that my contractions were like 3 to 2 minutes apart. And they're like, why didn't you like leave for the hospital sooner? And I'm like, well, I didn't know I was in labor. Because I have such a high pain tolerance. But when I was in the shower and my water broke, I just thought, oh, I probably peed on myself. But no, that was not pee. And then during my labor, on my birth plan, you can watch that. That's part of my postpartum. I talk about making a birth plan and that. I necessarily didn't go by all my birth plan because I did say, like, if it's medically necessary, then yes, I'll get that epidural. But I wanted it to be natural. So, but it wasn't. When I got into the hospital, they checked me. I arrived there at like 12:30. Then I was about, I think, 9 centimeters dilated by the time I got into the hospital, which is like insane to actually think about now. I was so far dilated by the time I got in. I'm surprised I didn't have the kid in the ambulance. But and then it was just like chaotic. I also was running a fever. They kept giving me medicine for that. So, and then they took the placenta off for testing since I had that fever. What was the source of me bleeding? Later to find out, it was because my placenta was like separating from my side of my wall and like coming out, even though I wasn't in labor yet at that point. So that's what happened. And so several hours later, about like 7:01 is when my son was born. So it was not a long labor. Got in the hospital really late. That was my experience of it. And then like what I thought, I didn't really, because it wasn't the hospital that I chose and registered at. It was the closest one that we could get into that night, because the one that I chose was like 30 minutes from my house, and then there was another one that was 30 minutes too. My insurance didn't really want this hospital. It preferred the other two hospitals, and I preferred those two other hospitals because I would have had my OB. But I didn't have her, and she already knew my whole birth plan. She knew, and her whole team all knew it. So if it wasn't her on call and it was someone else from her practice, they already had my birth plan. They already knew what I wanted. It's just like the hospital wasn't like my thing, and I'm not gonna out what hospital I had him in, because that could kind of tell you where I live proximately to that hospital. But I didn't really like the OB. She was kind of harsh. She's like, why didn't you come in sooner? Giving me all this attitude. And then she's like, I wish we knew that your baby was going to be this big. We could have done like something. And she's like, now you're going to have like a C-section next time. And I'm like, I don't think so. I'll have to get some other opinions, but I am better just because she gave me a hard time because I tore really bad. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Hey, this is my first kid. I didn't really know I was in labor. I have a high pain tolerance. So why are you giving me the hardest time? And then their pediatrician, we didn't want certain things. And they were giving us the hardest time. And then they would give us the hardest time because we didn't want our son out of our sight. Like me or my husband would go, or they would do it in the room while we're present because we didn't want something to happen. We wanted to be with him, but they just gave us the hardest time. The food there was okay. I really didn't care for it. I rather had the people who brought us food. Like my husband's old coworker brought us food from Ruth Chris because that night him and his whole like office were going to go to dinner, which obviously he couldn't go because we were in the hospital. But so he drove from where they were about like 20 minutes away having dinner. After that he drove down to the hospital and met my husband outside with the food for us, and it was just like the sweetest thing. And like even though my husband's not with that firm anymore, but he still like cares a lot for those certain people who really were like kind to him during when he was off work and during my pregnancy. They were just like so sweet, and I'm truly grateful for them. And then my parents also, they knew because I was pregnant I couldn't have any pokey. So that was my first meal after, obviously. Actually, no, that was the first meal for dinner. But my dad did bring me, after I gave birth, he came in and he brought us like Starbucks and all that. So that was fun. But I would do my birth way different. Like I really wish I like studied more about it, but I would have had like an extra person there with me to make sure I'm getting what I needed. So it's not all on my husband's shoulders. And then I'm definitely going the more midwife and birth doula whole route next time, and doing it probably at a birthing center. I just think with like what I believe for my baby and being at the hospital, I felt like I was restricted and I couldn't do stuff. Like, yes, I know I tore, but like every time I needed to get up, I felt like the nurses were giving me a hard time, even though they were lovely ladies. Hard time when they needed to help me and whatever. I just want to go and do like a different route. It has opened my eyes that I know a lot of OBs they're trained to do surgeries and they just want to do surgeries. But the OB that I got that was on shift that night at the hospital that I surely did not want to do, didn't even like try to like manually like cut it so that it wouldn't tear even worse. But she didn't choose to do that. And my personal OB's like, why didn't that OB do it? And I said, I don't know why she wouldn't do it, but she just didn't want to. So my experience with my first birth, I would say was traumatic. Like I just didn't have like the knowledge. I wish I did. I didn't have the support to like learn how to breastfeed properly. So like it only lasted 4 months for me, like breastfeeding and combo feeding, because I couldn't produce. I didn't have the knowledge. But now I do. Now I have a totally different mindset. My birth was traumatic in the way of how like I had those OBs, the nurses, those pediatrician at that hospital treated me, and like people that were doing testing, like I felt like they treated me like bad because they just like, they're like, oh, she's just like a young first time mom, she's not gonna know, like whatever, we could do whatever we want and she won't notice the difference. So my first birth experience did not go as planned. So I hope my next one, whenever that is, goes better. So bye.
Private jets, taking trips, come back at 6, wake me and your child, and it won't lay today.